Very good morning, and thanks for clicking on to Vogan's European Outlook. It is July 2022 Outlook Day, and I shall share my thoughts with regards to what I think July is going to produce, and we'll see what happens by the time we reach the end of the month. But thanks for clicking on to the Tuesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. It's the 28th of June. Ahead of myself, but it's anything but the end of June like across the UK. This is the current satellite image, by the way, this morning, and we have got an area of low pressure clearly seen on visible satellite representation this morning. Beautiful curl hook of cloud, something you would expect in October, November, December, January, February, not at the end of June. And the continuation of this weird and wacky pattern remains in place. Underneath this a big thick bank of cloud, we have got plenty of rainfall to speak about. This is the current radar chart. You can see here heavy pulses of rain riding north to northeast over eastern Ireland through the Irish Sea in the western portions of Scotland. And this frontal system will kind of edge its way eastwards through the progress of today, bringing some pretty strong winds as well, 40-50 mile an hour on the coast, near 80 mile per hour over the Cairngorm plateau this afternoon here, and we may see a few gusts even stronger than that. Certainly a very different story compared to this day in 2019, where we've seen France set a new all-time record. 45.9 Celsius was recorded near the Mediterranean coast. We've seen widespread mid-40s in this region here. So on this day, back in 2019, it was France's hottest day on record. A very different story compared to what we've got today. Not necessarily a wet and windy day or a cold day in France, but certainly temperatures are probably a good, at least 20, close to 20 degrees cooler than what it is today. So certainly is a big difference here. So this is the 850 temperatures here off the GFS, so plenty of fresh air. We've got a little wedge of, modest chill, if you will, at 850. Underneath that, right underneath the boundary here, this is the cold front. So we had cooler ahead of it, we'll have cooler behind it, and then of course even down across Iberia, we're seeing some of this fresher Atlantic air kind of push across the northern portion of Spain and Portugal, where temperatures have been below normal actually in recent times. A lot of heat across Italy and the Balkan region, where we're seeing temperatures yesterday into the low 40s in parts of Italy. And I think we could see more of that through the month of July. So as we play through the loop here, you can see here that temperatures slightly trying to come up over Iberia. You notice here we've got a lobe of sub-freezing air at 850 riding the under side of this area of low pressure. As it begins to start to fill, we'll lose that chilly air, but it still crosses over the UK, keeping things rather subdued temperature-wise down at the surface, low 20s at best through the remainder of this work week. A lot of the heat that's been over Italy then gets forced north and eastwards here. This is the frontal system that we have got over us right now. That is going to then push into Germany, bringing quite the demarcation zone between warmer over East Germany, colder over West Germany. We're going to see a very significant temperature difference through the course of Thursday and Friday potentially. Then, as you notice here, some of this fresh air gets pushed all the way into eastern portions of Portugal. All the while, you notice here, as this fresh air gets forced eastwards, cuts off the heat, tempers the temperatures down. You notice here that we're starting to see a fresh surge of heat out of Africa and into the western portion of Europe here. But you notice here that as we play through the loop, some very hot conditions moves into Spain, and Portugal here, but you notice that some of these temperatures are still getting subdued. But notice here, right? Notice here, and this is of course one GFS run. We've got some of this warm air getting wafted up into the North Atlantic here. We've got an area of high pressure, quite a significant area of high pressure, centred to the west of Ireland here. Some of this is cycling some of this warm air off Africa, off Iberia, around this high, and we could see some of this warmth getting toppled in, cycled around the area of high pressure in a clockwise fashion. And if you notice here, by the time we reach the middle of next week, this is fantasy land, I know that, but it's interesting to see how this is all taking place. It is a strange pattern. It has been a very unusual June, really, overall. But look at this here as we go forward. Plenty of hot air getting pushed towards Spain and Portugal, even into France, even into central portions of Europe. But look at the resistance. There is constant resistance off the Atlantic, low pressure to the north and the northwest, high pressure, tremendous amounts of heat, trying to come out of the Sahara towards the UK. We've got this constant resistance. Look at this is a weird looking pattern where you've got almost a straight line, crazy warmth at 850 down at the surface, crazy cool across the top, across the north. Looking at the overview chart here, you can see what it's looking like. So it is a bizarre pattern, a complex pattern at that, and it's going to get really interesting as we go forward how July is going to pan out. I don't think anything really, folks, is clear cut. So you can see here, this is the July forecast, and we'll rattle through this as quickly as possible so I don't bore the life out of you. But I talk about the year to date, the cool end of May, the cool start of June. We've seen, of course, the record-breaking temperatures across parts of France. We've seen the big contrast between warm and cold. Cool over the UK, very hot across the north of France. Temperatures, reached 32.7 Celsius. Hot, but it was a 24-hour affair and nothing really to write home about. Unusual temperatures across the UK where you're driving in heavy rainfall like it was a couple of days ago. 11 Celsius stuck under that rain and wind. And then east of the Pennines, you had 23 in sunshine, depending on whereabouts you were. Areas of low pressure have been fairly dominant across the UK, keeping temperatures subdued. The heat really to the south or the east of the UK largely throughout the month of June. Then I talk more in detail. Actually, by the way, I want to mention this. I think, personally speaking, I think June has been a very good forecast. Majority of the heat would be away from the southeast, like away from the UK generally speaking. Any real warmth would be in the southeast of the UK. That's exactly what happened. And temperatures would be somewhat disappointing. The weather overall somewhat disappointing compared to normal across particularly Ireland, Scotland, Northern Ireland generally. Big difference in sea surface temperatures here between the start of June, as you can see here. Hope it's as clear as possible. Cool across the North Atlantic, very warm water extending from the main development region of the Atlantic up the east side of the Atlantic and around the British Isles up towards Iceland, if you notice here. Then, as of yesterday, a big difference. We've dropped the temperature significantly over the North Atlantic. We've even etched away at that warmth. And I think what's interesting with these areas of low pressure at the moment, very warm water up against the African and the Iberian coastline, very cool waters just offshore. Are we starting to see that little bit of a response in this sharp gradient here over the North Atlantic, perhaps powering these unusually deep areas of low pressure? It's just a thought anyway, that could be having some sort of influence. I also think it's the amount of low pressure and the unusually deep areas of low pressure that has been churning up these Atlantic waters and bringing some of that colder, well below the surface water up to the surface, cooling the top layer of the ocean and bringing a significant reduction in temperature. Indeed. So July, I think we are going to see major heat. Back in 2017, temperatures hit 47.3 Celsius at Montoro. I think it's possible that we push that record this year. We also possibly could push the record in France. I think heat is going to be a big story yet again this summer across mainland Europe. And remember, I think, was it not last year that we seen the new Europe record? I think it was 48 point something Celsius recorded in Corsica, if I can remember right. I think heat's going to be a big story this year, folks. But this is another autumn low. Raining here in Glasgow. We've got winds of 50 mile an hour on the coast, hurricane force winds over the mountains, heavy persistent rain. By the way, this month actually could turn out wetter than normal across some places, but generally warmer than normal was the forecast, but possibly wetter than normal as well for the UK. I don't think there's a 2007-2012 type summer where we get really, really wet conditions. I think the La Nina has been decreasing spring and summer rainfall across the British Isles. Yeah, we might have wetter than normal conditions, but I think it is tempered by the influence of the La Nina in the Eastern Pacific here. Overall, I think it's restricted the amount of rainfall we could see. If you had an El Nino, by the way, and these warm waters late spring into the summertime, I think we could be talking about a very wet summer indeed, whereas I think slightly wetter than normal is more likely given the backdrop of the La Nina influence here. Week 1, low pressure retreats to the north, allowing higher pressure, drier, warmer weather to lift up into at least England and Wales, possibly Ireland, Northern Ireland and Scotland. Position of the high will determine how warm. We may get high to the west, allowing winds coming in around the top of that from a northwesterly direction. That would restrict any type of heat, of course. Get it east of the UK, you draw in hot air from Africa and Iberia. Different story altogether. Week 2, Atlantic low pressure returns to a west or northwest position of Scotland. This means cooler, more unsettled conditions return to the northwest and the west of Ireland and the UK, with driest, warmest weather restricted to the south and east of the UK. So that's week 2, I think. Back and forth, week 3, upper air pattern as the Atlantic low pressure battles and creates tug of war with the European high. Of course, heat trying to always push towards the UK, but you've got this constant resistance from the Atlantic here. So it's going to be interesting to see. Any real warmth will be brief in Scotland and Northern Ireland week 3. Week 4, potential for major heat over the continent, near continent, which could threaten the hottest days of the summer in all areas of the UK. So towards the end of July, there is the possibility at least that we could see some major heat, possibly a threat at 30 degrees in Ireland or Northern Ireland or Scotland, for example. But I think it is a fairly short-lived affair, generally speaking. And so the verdict for the UK and Ireland, slightly average to slightly above average in both temperature and rainfall. Very similar overall to the month of June. But with those cooling waters over the Atlantic and less heat source surrounding the UK, with troughiness near the UK and perhaps dragging some of that cooler air in off a colder than normal Atlantic, air temperatures may be quite chilly actually. This is the CFSV2 500 millibar height anomaly for the whole month of July. Precipitation wise, drier than normal, which is interesting. But look at this here, 2 meter temperature anomalies, average across the UK. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pattern evolves as we go forward here overall. So please keep it right here on my YouTube channel. I do appreciate every view, every comment, every like. If you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button and stay tuned. There's always more to come with regards to this interesting, weird and wacky summer so far. Hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Bye for now.